Hello, everybody. Happy marvelous Monday to you. I hope that you are all well and doing great. I am good. I'm glad that we are able to come back and to connect with each other this week. I hope that you've had an opportunity to check out the description, what we're talking about today. And I'm always going to bring information that's real, that's relevant for landlords and for tenants. So today we are discussing why some landlords will always be powerless. I promise you that this is something that you want to share with someone who is a landlord or a tenant. And if this is your first time tuning in, please let me know where you're watching from. I love to always know where my viewers are tuned in from. And I love to bring information that is applicable for you in the area or the jurisdiction that you're in. So if you don't know me, I'm Carissa Span, the landlord and tenant coach or the landlord and tenant expert. And this is what I do each and every Monday right here on my Facebook page as well as my YouTube channel. So if you have not found me on YouTube, please go to my YouTube channel, subscribe, click that notification button so that when I upload videos, you'll be the first to know. All right. And if you find that any information that I share today is helpful, please feel free to like and share this broadcast with someone else. All right. And if you have comments or if you have questions, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. All right. So we are going to get into the discussion on today because it is a much needed conversation. And I know that some of you, you've been waiting for the discussion. I've been receiving emails. I have had so many inbox messages regarding landlords who are getting abused and misused. And unfortunately, some landlords, as I've indicated, will always be powerless. And so today, I hope to share information that will help somebody who is either in this situation to come out of it, or maybe to try to prevent somebody from getting into this type of situation. All right. It is the unfortunate part about being a landlord. Listen, all landlords are not created equally. I do understand. I get it that sometimes it might seem unfair to have a tenant who's taking advantage of landlords and owners. But many of you know, you've been watching me, you've been tuning in, and you know that I live by this very simple philosophy. I've shared this time and time again. It's really simple. You want to know what it is? If you treat it like a business, it will pay you like a business. If you treat it like a hobby, well, it's going to pay you like a hobby. And some landlords have found that to be so true. Unfortunately, they had to find out the hard way what that philosophy means. So go ahead and drop your comments in the comment box, and I'm going to get to them a little in a little bit. Hello, Bishop Stedman. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hello, Caprice. How are you? Hello, Tanika. Thank you so much for tuning in, sis. I do appreciate that. Thank you for all that you do. Hello, Ms. Butler. You said your property taxes increased this year. That's not good, especially because we are in COVID. Hello, EP. Kathleen Moore. Thank you so much for tuning in. So before I get into the discussion, I want to go to the comment from Ms. Butler. Which jurisdiction, which area is your rental property in? I'm interested in knowing which area the the taxes increased. Because in many jurisdictions, taxes have not increased because here's the thing. Hey, Kim, thank you so much for tuning in, beautiful. So here's the thing, guys, because we're still in the eviction moratorium, and I know a lot of you are probably tired of hearing that word, but that's the reality of it. We are still in the pandemic. Okay, I see that your property is in DC. All right, I'm going to touch on that in a little bit. Thank you so much for tuning in. So here's the thing, right? So we are still in the pandemic, right? We are those of us who are landlords and housing providers or property managers or some capacity in the rental property business. We understand that some of us are financially impacted because we have tenants who are not able to pay rent during the pandemic. So is it fair that taxes are increasing? when we can't increase the rent, we can't raise the rent on tenants. So the question is, what could you do? What can we do? That's a great question. And so let me check into that for you, Ms. Butler. Um, Ms. Butler, if you would do me a favor, inbox me your email address. I'm going to follow up with you a little bit later, probably tomorrow. So let me just check into some things for you, get some information about your rental property and what happened, and see if we can help get that offset for you. I can't make any promises, but I would do my best to help you. And the information that I share today is not legal advice. It's just pretty much best industry practices. So landlords who have tenants and they may be self-managing their property. Here's what I found to be true. And here's the thing: landlords who are self-managing their property, who don't have knowledge, they don't have really property management background or education, and maybe this is a property that you've had for a while, right? And so with no formal training, no education about property management laws or best industry practices, maybe you've been doing the best that you could with trying to manage your property and manage your tenants, because if you're self-managing your property that you own, you're not required by law to have a property manager's license. You're not required to have any training, right? Because it's your money, or maybe it was willed to you, or you inherited the property, or however you came into possession of ownership of the property. The fact is, it's your rental property. You self-manage it, so you're not required to have any formal training. And so sometimes people in those situations, because you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the background in property management, or maybe you've never had a property manager or property management coach or consultant to tell you the right from the wrong thing to do and how to best handle your property. I find that it's many people in that same situation that I just identified who are going through it the most. All right. So in the description box, I just put something in there like it's usually the uninformed who are abused the most. And when you are renting property, whether you're self managing it or you're managing property for someone else, you must always be aware and knowledgeable about the law, because the law is in place to protect you as well as the tenants. Now, in jurisdictions such as Washington, D.C., where your property is, Ms. Butler, we know that D.C. is pro tenant. So, what does that mean? That means that the laws are strongly in favor of tenants versus landlords. There are so many horror stories of landlords that are trying to do the right thing. They really just want to offer rental property to tenants, and they just want a tenant who will take care of the place, right? They want a tenant that's going to pay the rent, that's not going to tear it up, that's not going to put holes in the walls, that's not going to turn it into a trap house or a drug house, that's not going to create some sort of issue or be a nuisance tenant to the other neighbors in the community. But unfortunately, for those type of owners who are absent, who don't have property management background or experience, they don't know how to manage that landlord and tenant relationship. So that's really the biggest secret, is knowing how to manage the landlord and tenant relationship. Because here's the thing: you can't control other people, you can't make people do the right thing. So the secret is finding the balance where there's chaos, where there's drama, where there is maybe sometimes I like to affectionately call some of them tenants from hell, because it's true. Not all tenants are bad. But let's be honest, not all tenants are good. Some of you watching, you already know and understand that you've had a couple of rodeo rides with some bad tenants, all right, that just did not work out. No matter how nice you were, no matter how hard you tried, it just did not work out, because some of the tenants, they just insist on doing the wrong thing, right? And so that is the unfortunate part about it. Hello, Lynette. Thank you so much for tuning in, boss lady from Charlotte. So, in situations where landlords are self-managing in property, they sometimes get hit the hardest. They get hit the most with whammies that they never expected. All right. So, the biggest thing is managing that landlord and tenant relationship. And one of the things that I'm really big on is customer service. All right. I've shared so frequently in my class. I'm also a property manager, college professor, but I've shared so many times in my class that customer service is not just a department, it's a mindset. And I get it. Sometimes some tenants will push you to um, levels that you never imagined going and levels that you don't really like to be in. But how do you manage that when that happens? If you have a tenant that's maybe there's some sort of substance abuse issue going on, maybe they're smoking or doing drugs or whatever, maybe there's some mental health issues. How do you manage those situations in those times where tenants are just spiraling out of control, right? So, true story. I had a conversation a little earlier today where there was a young lady and she's a little frustrated. She has a tenant that has been in her place for, I believe she said 12 years. And over the years, things have progressively gotten so much worse than what it started out. And so the tenant, she has other people living in the household. She refused to allow the landlord to come in to make the repairs. She's smoking weed. So the tenant eventually allowed this owner to come in, right, to inspect her own property. So she went into the property to find that the tenant was growing marijuana, and she had all these large machines and devices in the rental property, and there were fans, but there was obviously maybe a cheap fan or not the best quality or whatever. I don't know because that's not my thing. But there was a fan that was supposed to blow I guess the odor of it outside or something. And so it wasn't working properly. And so the house had this strong odor of marijuana. And it was really becoming an issue for the other tenants the other neighbors in the community who contacted the owner and said, listen, you got to do something with your tenant because we're smelling this weed all types of the hours throughout the night. And it was just a big mess. And so this tenant, um, she just refused to cooperate. She refused to allow the owner to make repairs. And then, worse, she called the authority and told the authorities that the landlord wasn't making repairs, but she failed to allow the landlord to come in to make the repairs. And so this landlord is obviously frustrated because she wants to do the right thing. She really thought that she was being a great person by renting her property to somebody. And it's in a really nice neighborhood in Washington, D.C. And it's unfortunate that there are so many stories like that. But again, guys, not all tenants are bad. Not everybody is a bad apple, a bad seed. But I share those stories because I want other landlords to know and hear situations like this to try to prevent somebody from going through this or to help somebody to come out of it. All right. So managing that landlord and tenant relationship is going to be the key factor to the success of landlords or rental property business owners. So whether, again, you're managing it yourself, you own it, you have somebody managing it for you, the biggest thing is knowing the law and then understanding the dynamics behind treating it like a business, having that customer service mindset, because I promise you that you can catch more bees with honey than you can with vinegar, right? So we can agree that or we could agree to disagree. But I just believe that when you have a heart to help people, that usually you'll come out on top. Not that everything is going to be perfect, because I promise you it's not, but it's just knowing how to navigate through those uncharted territories that sometimes you find yourself in. All right. So that's really the biggest thing. And I see so many landlords and property owners who are not knowledgeable. And sometimes tenants expect for owners to know the law. Tenants are relying on owners and property managers to know what they should and should not do. But the reality is everybody just don't know, which is why I do what I do. I share information, I coach, I train, I consult, I teach, I share, because I recognize that people just don't know. And what you don't know, it can and will hurt you. All right. So it's always in your best interest to know what the law says. All right. If there's something that's going on and you don't understand, and if it's something that you're not able to manage or to handle or maintain yourself, get yourself some help. Maybe contact the tax office to find out why the taxes increased in the midst of a pandemic when you can't raise your rent. You can't even impose a rent increase on the tenant, but the taxes are going up. And so those are the type of conversations that we should have. When we come to the table, we should brainstorm it to figure out, okay, what is the best solution? What is the best way to handle this type of issue? All right. If you have comments or if you have questions, please drop it in the comment box. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can today. I have a diverse group of people that's watching on Facebook and YouTube. So I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in and thank you for sharing because sharing is caring. But more importantly, all right, treating it like a business will pay you like a business. And unless you're running a charity, it's always in your best interest to operate your business and not wear your emotions or your feelings on your sleeve. So many people are caught up in their emotions. So many people are caught up in their feelings. And I get it. I've done it. I'm guilty of it. Here recently, well, maybe about 2 or 3 months ago, my father passed away, right? He was my closest friend. He was 94 years young. He passed away so unexpectedly. And I recall it like it was yesterday. And I really should have taken some time off. I knew it, but I could not. Right. So I work in a very demanding rental community that really required my presence. And so when I should have taken time off to be home grieving, I was at work trying to make a difference and be the superhero in the community. And there was a situation that happened where I snapped on a tenant. True story. I snapped on a tenant and it wasn't good. It was just now the tenant is, let me just say that she's not a tenant from hell, but she's one of those tenants where um, sometimes you find people that just wake up on the wrong side of the bed and they're just looking for somebody they can just poke and push their buttons. Well, she's one of those type of individuals where every time she talks to you, her voice is elevated and it's never a calm in the conversation. It's always snappy. It's always something smart or sarcastic, right? It's always the head shaking and, the little thing that some people do. So anyway, that was just not the day for me. And I responded inappropriately and it took that situation, all right, from 0 to 1 trillion in a split second because I was not in a place mentally with what I was dealing with grieving to respond on a professional level. Now, everybody don't have a customer service background, so everybody's not going to respond the same, right? So remember, I said that you can't make people do the right thing. You can't change who people are. You can't control what they do, how they talk to you, or what they say to you. But what you can control is your response. You can control how you respond to them and what you say and what you do, right? And so that day I just snapped. I mean, it was no argument or anything, but my response was a little snappy. It was not professional. And the situation got really bad. The tenant was already confrontational. She, like I said, she wakes up on the bad side of the bed looking to see, whose nerves she can get on. And that day, she got on my reserve nerve. She pushed that right button on that day and she got the response that she got. And it happens. But the one thing that I don't do, I don't take pride in being disrespectful. I don't take pride in being rude. I don't take pride in none of that stuff because it's just it takes too much out of me to be negative and to be drama filled and to be full of all of that stuff, the chaos. I just can't do it. Me personally, I just can't do it. So if it takes me to that point, I'll tap out. I have had to withdraw. I have had to hang the phone up so that we could uh, terminate the conversations because it was just going to a place where it's just not the best, right? And sometimes it's okay, right? So I believe in respecting people, but people should also respect you. But how do you handle those situations where people don't respect you? All right. Thank you. Hey, Pete, how are you? Happy Monday. Thank you for tuning in. Pete, your comment says, I can't picture that for some reason. Listen, it happens. I couldn't picture it either. And I'm sure that tenant, she couldn't picture it, but it probably didn't even matter to her. But you're right, Pete. I'm human. People are human and people are entitled to respond. People are entitled to react. So, Pete, in a situation like that, How would you have handled that situation? So let me just tell you how the story went. All right. So I came in as I always do. It's always hello, happy Monday, happy Tuesday, happy Wednesday. Because for me, even on a bad day, any day above ground is still a good day. Any day that I have breath in my body, any day that the good Lord has blessed me to see another day of life and to experience new mercy, new grace, I'm appreciative. So every day is a good day, but everybody don't appreciate that. Everybody doesn't. Everybody just for whatever reason can't subscribe to that, and it's okay. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to change the world and get everybody to be nice and positive and bubbly and good morning, good evening. It's just not going to happen. So Pete, this is the situation. So I walked in and was like, "Hey, happy whatever day of the week it was," and her response. I asked her a question. Her response was, "It's over there." Yeah, I mean, it was just like really ghetto, right? And and I was like, "But that's not what I asked you." And so, it just because I said that to her, it took the conversation, like I said, from 0 to 1 trillion in a split second, which also resulted into her cussing and being just belligerent. I mean, and she actually intentionally stayed in that space for at least 45 minutes for something that should have taken 5 minutes. And I politely asked her, I was like, okay, well, can you leave? Like, are we finished? Like, okay, I have other appointments. And she was like, I'm not going nowhere. You just going to have to call the police. I mean, it was just bad. And I did call the police. I left out, I came back. She was still there. I called the police and they had to come and they escorted her out. And I promise she was cussing and she cussed me all the way out. I don't know all the words she used, but she went at one side of me and came down the other. But in that moment, I had to find time to regroup, to recalibrate, and get back to that calm, that professional, that neutral place. Because, like you said, Pete, people are human. People are entitled to respond. People are entitled to have opinions about you, and vice versa. You are entitled to have opinions about people. As long as there's respect, that's what matters. And so, landlords who find themselves on the wrong end, who found themselves being emotionally overwhelmed because tenants are not respecting them because they don't know how to communicate, they are the ones who are usually stressed out, depressed, ready to burn the house down with tenants in it, and so much more. But I promise it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And so, if you find yourself in that situation, sometimes it is definitely okay to take a step back. But Pete, how would you handle that situation? All right, so I'm going to read your comment, Pete. You said, I know a tenant just like that. Loud all the time, doesn't matter what day it is. I take a deep breath, walk away because you have to. I get it. I get it. And sometimes that's the best approach. Just walk away. Because if you walk away, then maybe that allow them to calm down. Maybe that allow you to calm down as well. Sometimes it's okay to step back, step away from the situation because the anger, the sarcasm, the disrespect, none of that is going to produce anything positive. And I promise the outcome will usually not be what you desired. If you want a positive outcome or outlook that looks anywhere remotely close to being good, mm, yeah, sometimes it's probably better to take a step back and allow things to work its way out. Um, Pete, you said we can't control others or what happens, but we can control our response. That is so true. I strongly and I firmly believe that so much, Pete. It can't be hard. Trust me, I know. I know, Pete. I know you know, because you've been in the industry for a while. But Pete, there are landlords who are watching. There are tenants who are watching who don't understand that concept. There are landlords who would never subscribe to treating tenants with respect. And as a result, the tenants don't respect them. Respect is a two-way street. Just because you are the owner of a property, you do not get to mistreat tenants or treat them like they are less than you because they may be in maybe a Section 8 program or some sort of subsidized housing program. Tenants are people too. And so they deserve respect. All right. And so if you treat them with respect, then you'll usually get that in the end. But even if you do your best, let's say you go above and beyond and you still get a tenant that doesn't respect you, you've done your part. Don't stoop down to their level. Don't degrade yourself trying to respond on their level, because they don't have rental property. You do. Okay. They obviously need something from you. And so, as a housing provider, be professional, be courteous, be kind and polite. And if you are lacking knowledge, get help. There is so much information available. There are so many outlets. There are so many property management companies, property managers that are available. There is training. There are tutorials to help. There is no reason why somebody, as a landlord or owner, is operating a rental property business without this knowledge or information. It's no way. It's no reason for that to happen. It's no reason at all. But people go through it. People just don't understand the dynamics of what makes a healthy landlord and tenant relationship work. And for that reason, that's why I said there are some landlords that will always be powerless because their tenants are in more control than they are. All right. Getting upset, it's not going to change the situation. When you know the law and you know what you're supposed to do it and run it like a business. It's going to pay you like a business. All right. So, Pete, your comment says sometimes it doesn't matter. You go in there to do a job and that's all you can do. That's all you can do. Do everything to cover your butt. Absolutely. Absolutely. Always cover you. Cover you. Cover your asset. All right. Cover you at all costs. All right. And right now, because we're in the pandemic, a lot of landlords are not comfortable going into rental properties that are occupied. They don't want to go into a tenant's home. And I get it. And some tenants don't really want you in there. And it's okay. Don't force yourself in that situation. If you have a tenant that's not allowing you in to make repairs. So I shared the story how the young lady I spoke to today, she had a tenant who just was not cooperating with her, didn't want her to come in to make repairs. And if you have those type of tenants, respect the fact that tenants don't want you in right now. And it's probably safe, for you to not go in, but just document your attempts, communicate with the communicate with the tenant and let them know that you're trying to make repairs and to please let you know when you can come back to make the necessary repair. Now, if that doesn't work out, then unfortunately, the best thing that you can do when the courts will allow you to do so is to take the tenant to court if they are violating the lease. So certainly look at your lease agreement. And finally, I'll share this. Landlords cannot enforce something that does not exist. I'm going to say that again. Landlords cannot enforce something that does not exist. If it is not in your lease, you cannot enforce it. Here's what I mean. So, Pete, I'm going to use you because I know that you're in the industry and you don't mind me picking on you. So, Pete, you're the landlord, you have a tenant, and you've had this tenant in place for a year. All right. In your lease, it does not mention anything about doing inspections. Then all of a sudden, you decide you want to start doing inspections, but the tenant refuses to allow you to come in to do inspections and tell you that it's not in the lease. Well, Pete, you're a kind man, and usually you keep your cool. But this particular day, you're a little perturbed because you just really want to get in to do repairs because you're a good man. You want to do the right thing, run your rental property business, and make repairs. But you just can't get in because the tenant refused. So when you don't have it in writing in your lease, if you don't have that contract, right? You cannot enforce it. You cannot impose, meaning that if it's not in writing, you can't require that the tenant adhere to whatever you're saying. So please make sure that it is in writing. You can't enforce something that does not exist. If it's not in the lease, you can't force it. And if you are a tenant, because I've been speaking primarily to the landlords today, but if you are a tenant, okay, and you have a lease that you don't understand, please ask your landlord to cover the terms of the lease, to explain it to you so that you'll know what's in the lease. If you are getting ready to move into a place, please do not sign a lease until you have read it thoroughly and you understand it. Because when you sign a lease, it is a legally binding document that can and will be upheld in the court of law as long as the terms are in accordance to what the law says that it can be. All right. So if the law allows the landlord to, let's say, require you to have renter's insurance, then the landlord would say that you must have it. If you sign a lease and the landlord says that you're responsible for making repairs up to, let's say, $500. So meaning that if repairs are needed, this is just an example, this is not everybody's lease. Let's say that the maintenance minimum escrow or minimum amount is $500. So anything over $500, the landlord will pay for. So anything $499 and below, you're responsible for. If that is what you sign as your lease agreement, that's what you must do regardless of whatever is going on. Even if you don't have the money, it's not the landlord's responsibility to change the terms of the lease because now all of a sudden that's what you want. Same with landlords. If it's in writing, if you sign that contract, please make sure that you are sticking to what is in your lease. And if it's not in writing, you cannot enforce it. All right. Pete, your comment says a rock and a hard place. Absolutely. You get it. You understand it. And unfortunately, there are so many people who just don't get it. And for that reason, there are a lot of landlords that will always be powerless. That's the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. All right. So I just wanted to come on and share some information to help some landlords, to help some tenants. But at the end of the day, if we do it together, together is always better. So I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that something that I've shared was helpful for you. I do this Facebook and YouTube live each and every Monday right here at 7:30 p.m. And so if you have not found me on YouTube, please find my YouTube channel and subscribe to my page. Okay. Please continue to tune in each and every Monday. Share this information because sharing is caring. Is I promise there's somebody who may need to hear this information, who may need some tips that I share that will help them in their rental property business, or it just may help tenants because I like to share information for both sides of the aisle, right? For landlords as well as tenants. And so again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I do hope that you will tune in next week. Same place, same channel right here on YouTube. Thank you so much for that, Pete. I do appreciate you sharing. I do appreciate your continued support, Pete. And thank all of you, for your continued support. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you for the questions that you have. And I look forward to you joining me next week. All right. Bye for now.